Imagine being on the brink of becoming Indiana Jones, Hollywood's most daring archaeologist, only to have the role slip away at the last second. For most actors, that kind of missed opportunity would feel like the end of a career. But for Tom Selleck, it became the beginning of something even bigger. Instead of wielding a whip on the big screen, he traded it for Hawaiian shirts, a Ferrari, and one of the most recognizable mustaches in television history. His role as Thomas Magnum didn't just make him a star, it cemented him as a cultural icon of the 1980s. But behind the fame, the Emmy Awards, and the box office hits, there's a deeper story, one that Tom Selleck himself has kept close to his heart until very recently. At 80 years old, he has finally spoken openly about the man who shaped not only his career, but also his values. James Garner, known to millions as the charming maverick of the 1950s and the street-smart private eye Jim Rockford of the 1970s. Garner wasn't just a colleague to Selleck. He was a mentor, a role model, and a reminder that in an industry obsessed with image, integrity still mattered. So, why does this matter today? Because in a world where celebrity scandals dominate headlines, Tom Selleck's story stands out as rare proof that you can survive Hollywood without losing yourself. His life is more than a highlight reel of hit shows and films. It's a testimony to balance, the tension between ambition and humility, between career and family, between fame and authenticity. And at the heart of it all was Garner's quiet but powerful influence. In this video, we're diving into the full story. How a kid from Detroit with dreams of basketball became one of television's most beloved faces. How near misses and setbacks turned into opportunities that defined a generation of TV. How Selleck built a life of stability on a California ranch, far from Hollywood chaos. And ultimately, how James Garner shaped not just Selleck's career choices, but his entire philosophy of life. Stay with us, because this isn't just another celebrity biography. It's a journey into the kind of values Hollywood rarely celebrates: loyalty, humility, and family, and how those values can leave a legacy far greater than box office numbers or Emmy Awards. When you picture Tom Selleck, chances are you see him behind the wheel of a Ferrari, rocking a Hawaiian shirt and flashing that unmistakable mustache. But long before he became Magnum, he was just a tall kid from Detroit with one dream: basketball. Born in 1945, Selleck's early life was ordinary. His family eventually moved to Sherman Oaks, California, where suburban life revolved around school, sports, and the promise of post-war prosperity. For young Tom, basketball was everything. He earned a scholarship to the University of Southern California, suiting up for the USC Trojans while studying business administration. In his mind, the court, not the stage, was his future. Yet life has a way of surprising us. One of his drama coaches saw something unusual in Tom: presence. That rare mix of charisma and quiet confidence that cameras love. Urged to try acting, he took small classes and soon appeared in commercials, including a now famous run for Pepsi. He didn't think much of it at the time, but it was the first step toward a career he never imagined. Breaking into Hollywood wasn't easy. In the 1960s and 70s, Selleck was the face you might spot in the background. Guest roles in The Dating Game or The Rockford Files, bit parts in TV dramas, and even failed pilots that never saw the light of day. These weren't glamorous opportunities, but they gave him time in front of the camera and something equally valuable: resilience. Every rejection forced him to refine his craft and push forward. And then came the role he almost had: Indiana Jones. George Lucas and Steven Spielberg wanted him. He looked the part. He had the swagger. And his audition impressed. But there was a catch: his commitment to a little TV show called Magnum P.I. made it impossible. Most actors would call that a career heartbreak. For Selleck, it became a blessing. When Magnum P.I. premiered in 1980, it exploded. Audiences loved the mix of action, humor, and heart. Selleck's Thomas Magnum wasn't just another tough private eye. He was approachable, charming, and flawed in a way that felt real. He could chase down a suspect one moment and share a vulnerable conversation the next. Add in the Ferrari, the Hawaiian shirts, and the sun-soaked setting, and Magnum became the face of 80s television. Over 8 seasons, the show turned Selleck into a household name. He won an Emmy and a Golden Globe. But more importantly, he built a character people truly cared about, even decades later, when you mention TV detectives. Thomas Magnum still tops the list. Looking back, his journey from the basketball court to Hollywood wasn't smooth. It was a grind filled with false starts, missed chances, and tough lessons. But each setback shaped him. The discipline of sports, the patience learned from rejection, and even the near miss with Indiana Jones all prepared him for the role that defined his career. And through these early years, one connection quietly planted itself in his life: James Garner. Selleck's small appearances on the Rockford Files introduced him to the man who would later become his mentor, showing him that success in Hollywood wasn't just about fame, it was about character. When Magnum P.I. wrapped in 1988 after 8 successful seasons, many actors in Tom Selleck's position might have clung to the formula that made them famous. He could have played a version of Magnum for the rest of his career, riding the wave of an iconic role. But Selleck had something bigger in mind: longevity. To achieve that, he needed to reinvent himself. Hollywood can be cruel to television stars. Many who shine in one big role fade when audiences can't picture them as anything else. Selleck understood this risk. That's why, even while Magnum was still airing, he began branching out into film. His first major hit came in 1987 with the comedy 3 Men and a Baby. The movie was a massive success, proving he wasn't just an action or detective actor. He could carry comedy too. It became the highest-grossing film of that year, cementing his place not just on TV screens but also in theaters. He didn't stop there. Selleck had always loved westerns. And in 1990, he starred in Quigley Down Under, a film that played to his rugged, old-school charm. While not a box office juggernaut, the movie showed another side of him, connecting him to Hollywood's cowboy tradition. Over the next decade, he moved between genres: thrillers, romances, family films. Some projects soared, others flopped. But each choice reflected his determination to avoid being typecast. But while career choices kept him in the spotlight, what truly defined this phase of Selleck's life wasn't Hollywood. It was family. His personal life had already seen major chapters. A first marriage to model Jacqueline Ray, during which he adopted her son, Kevin, giving the boy stability and love. Kevin grew up to become a musician, later joining the successful rock band Tonic. That decision to adopt revealed a lot about Selleck's character. In an industry known for ego and self-interest, he prioritized being a father after his divorce. Selleck's life took another turn when he met British actress and dancer Gilly Mack. The two married in 1987, and a year later welcomed their daughter, Hannah. Unlike many celebrity children who gravitated toward Hollywood, Hannah followed her passion for horses, becoming a professional equestrian. Selleck often said one of his proudest roles wasn't on screen, but as her father, supporting her drive and resilience to protect his family life. Selleck made a bold decision few actors at his level would dare. He stepped back from Hollywood's relentless grind. Instead of chasing every role, he and Gilly chose to raise Hannah on a 60-acre avocado ranch in California's Hidden Valley. The property, once owned by Dean Martin, offered privacy and simplicity, while other stars chased fame in Beverly Hills. Selleck spent his mornings fixing fences, clearing brush, and working the land. In interviews, he described this life not as a retreat, but as a grounding force. "I hate the gym," he once joked. "So working on the ranch is my exercise." For him, sweating under the sun meant more than lifting weights in front of a mirror. It was real, tangible work that kept him humble. That choice, stepping away from Hollywood chaos to focus on family and authenticity, was rare in his industry. But it became central to how Selleck defined success. Fame mattered, sure, roles mattered, but nothing mattered more than building a life of balance, and in many ways. This philosophy wasn't just his own. It was something he had quietly absorbed from his mentor, James Garner. Every great career has a hidden foundation, someone who showed the way, not through fame or fortune, but through example. For Tom Selleck, that person was James Garner. Long before they shared screen time, Selleck had admired Garner from afar. In the 1950s, Garner broke out as the star of Maverick, redefining the television cowboy. He wasn't brooding or larger than life. He was witty, charismatic, and approachable for a young Tom watching at home. Garner seemed different from every other actor. He radiated authenticity. Years later, fate brought them together. Selleck landed small roles in the 1970s, including guest appearances on The Rockford Files, Garner's signature detective show. For a rising actor, this was like stepping into the orbit of a giant. Selleck was nervous, expecting perhaps a distant star. Instead, he met a man who treated the boom mic operator with the same respect as the director. That lesson stuck with him. True professionalism wasn't about power. It was about humility. When Selleck became a star in his own right with Magnum P.I., their bond deepened. The two would later work together on television projects and off camera. Garner became a sounding board for Tom. He warned him about Hollywood's pitfalls, ego, entitlement, and the temptation to compromise integrity for fame. These weren't abstract lessons. They were survival skills. Hollywood is littered with the ruins of actors who lost themselves in excess or arrogance. Garner wanted to make sure Selleck wasn't one of them, and it worked, time and again. Selleck made choices that reflected Garner's influence. While others chased every role, he was selective. While others sacrificed family for career, he stepped back at the height of his fame to raise his daughter on a ranch. Garner's own long marriage to Lois Clark served as a model. If Garner could stay true to his wife and values while thriving in Hollywood, so could Selleck. But Garner's influence wasn't just practical. It was personal. On tough days filming Magnum, Selleck sometimes felt the pressure of carrying a hit show. Garner understood the burden intimately. He had lived it with the Rockford Files. Their conversations were full of humor, perspective, and the kind of honesty only another leading man could offer. Selleck once recalled how Garner could cut through his stress with a single story or joke, reminding him that, in the end, it was just television. It wasn't worth losing yourself over. By the time Selleck turned 80, he finally felt ready to say publicly what he had carried privately for decades. That Garner wasn't just a colleague, but the standard he tried to live up to. He admitted that Garner shaped not only the kind of actor he became, but also the kind of man. Integrity, humility, respect, values that Hollywood rarely rewards, were the ones Garner embodied, and Selleck made them his compass. In interviews, Selleck has been candid. "I owe him more than I can ever repay. James Garner set the standard for everything I've tried to be, and at 80, I'm still trying to live up to it." That's a remarkable statement, not just because of what it says about Garner, but because of what it reveals about Selleck. Even after decades of fame, awards, and success. He still sees himself as a student, still striving, still learning from the example of a man he admired. When you look at Selleck's career, the balance of blockbuster roles, family devotion, and grounded lifestyle, it's impossible not to see Garner's shadow, not as something that overshadowed him, but as a guide that lit the way. And in many ways, that's the most powerful legacy of mentorship. When one person's character inspires another to build a life of integrity that endures long after the cameras stop rolling. When we look back at Tom Selleck's life and career, the story isn't just about a man who became a television icon. It's about how he navigated the stormy seas of Hollywood without losing himself. From his early days on the basketball court to the global fame of Magnum P.I, from big screen hits like 3 Men and a Baby to his steady reinvention in Blue Bloods, Selleck proved that longevity in entertainment doesn't have to come at the cost of authenticity. But what makes his story resonate isn't just the roles, it's the choices. While many stars chased endless publicity, he chose privacy. While others fell into the traps of ego or excess, he returned to his ranch, trading red carpets for avocado groves. He stepped back from the relentless machine of Hollywood to be a present husband and father, and he never let fame define his worth. That's rare, especially in an industry built on image. At the heart of these choices lies the quiet but steady influence of James Garner. Garner's lessons weren't delivered in lectures. They were lived out in the way he treated people, the way he carried himself, and the way he balanced career with personal life. Selleck absorbed those lessons and made them his own, shaping a career marked not only by success, but by dignity. When Selleck admits, even at 80, that he is still striving to live up to Garner's example, it speaks volumes about the depth of that mentorship. What's striking is how timeless those lessons are. In today's culture, where social media rewards outrage, where celebrities often crumble under the pressure of constant exposure, Selleck's story is a reminder that there's another way. You can build a career without burning bridges. You can achieve fame without sacrificing character. You can walk away from the spotlight and still hold on to what matters most. For fans, Tom Selleck will always be Magnum, or Frank Reagan, or the charming cowboy in Quigley Down Under. But beyond the screen, he represents something even more enduring, the possibility of success with integrity. His ranch life, his devotion to family, and his lifelong humility show that real strength isn't in the applause of millions. It's in the quiet choices that define who you are when no one is watching. And maybe that's why his bond with James Garner feels so powerful. It wasn't about Hollywood gossip or blockbuster deals. It was about 2 men who understood the heavy weight of fame and chose to carry it with grace. Garner passed that torch to Selleck. And now, in sharing the truth about his mentor, Selleck passes a piece of that torch to us. So what do we take from Tom Selleck's journey? That greatness isn't measured in ratings or box office numbers. It's measured in how you treat people, the values you stand by, and the legacy you leave behind. Selleck reminds us that even in a world obsessed with image, authenticity still matters. And perhaps the real story here isn't just about a Hollywood star. It's about a man who chose integrity over vanity, balance over chaos, and family over fame. As viewers, we can admire his roles, but maybe the deeper challenge is this: are we living with the same kind of balance and character in our own lives? That's a question worth reflecting on long after the credits roll.